Okay. So the next sample is going to be essentially connecting the functionality for window close box. Okay, so let's see what we can do. Right now, if I run this application, this current version of this application, there are ways for me to close it, right? So the X button, as you can see, the default behavior of the X button right here is not to exit this application, but simply hide the window, right? So just like, okay, hide the window. But guess what? That event dispatch thread, this thing in memory, still continues to run, and the application doesn't exit. So you already noticed that every time I wanted to exit out of it, I really had to go and click this button to basically kill the Java process and make sure that I get rid of it before I make my changes and run it again. Obviously, this may not be a desirable behavior. So if we wanted to, if we wanted to make this window really close and exit the application, we need to do some extra work here. And so what we could do is, right after we create the frame, right? So we create the frame with the title bar here. We can also, this is the first example where we say, how do you handle events? So it happens that when the user finds a way to close the window, what happens is that it's possible that you can provide a helper object which will respond to window closing. Okay, so this window closing method here will take the event object, the event that will be provided to us, and we can write some code. In the simplest form, we can just simply say system exit, which will ask the system to basically remove our application from memory. Okay, so let's take this little section here, which is basically our approach, right? That we could add to our application. So Control C, take this add window listener, right? And before we do anything else with the frame, right? We can just right after we create this frame object, we can add this code. Once again, I'll just say source format, right? And so as soon as I create the window, I say I would like to listen on window closing, and if it starts happening just like this, I would like to execute the code that says system exit. By the way, another example of an anonymous object. Look what is being done. I say create new object. What kind of object? Typically we expect to have a class which provides us the class name. We can create an object of a specific class. This time we say that there's this abstract interface window adapter, okay? And you really need to know that it exists. And look, it exists inside Java application window framework, and then event, and then there's one of the events in window adapter, right? And then you see this using rounded parentheses, which is the constructor syntax. But instantly, what it does, it uses, when you say new, provide the abstract class name, and then open the brace, right, which is the block of code, and you can use this interface to instantly implement methods in this abstract class. And we again refer to this technique, this type of syntax in Java is is basically a syntax for creation of an anonymous class. Basically, we create a class which has no name but implements this specific interface and instantly adds a method to it. Typically, this technique can be used successfully only with very short interfaces, so that this code doesn't expand like multiple pages. Just maybe method or two is appropriate and acceptable to use when you create when you need to quickly create an object and provide implementation for a method in some interface. All right. So once again, just to show you that this is simply a method implementation, is that you can use an override, the familiar annotation, just to make sure that our method signature is exactly as expected, and so here's the window closing. So supposedly now, if we find a way to close a window, and there are multiple ways. For example, on Windows, if you press Alt F4 combination, it will be having the same effect as pressing the X button, or you can press the X button. So with this modification, let's just save this and run this, right? So we have our window, and if I click the X button now, it just entirely exits very successfully. It does exit, right? Let me run this again, okay? And this time I'll use Windows shortcut to close the window, which is Alt F4, and there it goes. It exits. There's another way of doing this, right? So once again, I'll run it again, and if you press Alt and Spacebar, you'll see that the System window menu shows up, and sure enough, part of it is Close option, so I can use the keyboard to close this window. So now I say Close, okay? So there's basically all these methods to exit, but anytime the closing is about to happen, you can just say that if the user is trying to get out of this application, window closing could be our way to basically respond to the user action, and in fact say, all right, under this circumstance, let's exit out. And system exit basically finishes the execution of our application, and we successfully exit. So there are many other considerations here. This is not just the end of our discussion, simply because there could be some unsaved information. So sometimes you don't want to exit unconditionally. Maybe you want to interact with the user, but more on that later on. We will explore this part later on. But typically, when you use, say, NetBeans Graphical User Interface Designer, you'll realize that the frame typically is created already with a flag that says, whenever this frame closes, exit the application. So there are some other ways that you can handle this, but this is a demonstration of how you can attach essentially the listener, which will be invoked at the appropriate time and do the right thing for whatever we're planning it to do. So this is just a demo, and of course we have to start someplace. So sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, but let's make some progress through these samples as we're trying to, right? So little by little, you will develop your own kind of like feel for this style of programming, and we will build up this knowledge and then move on to using a graphical user interface designer.